He gave him a chest spanking so forceful they heard it from the moon. Hans Niemann really gave Mr. Liren a good ding. It's the last 16 of the Speed Chess Championship. Online blitz and bullet chess at its finest, amongst the elite in the world, but Ding Liren not playing like it. I'll bring you the final whooping score at the end. First, let's check out a couple of absolute smashings. The second one is the cherry on top. Let's start here with Ding playing white, and sign of things to come. He tries to play super solid, tuck his king into bed on move 4. There's a good way to keep your coach proud, but he allows Niemann to erect the overpowered BBC. That's big black centre. Now he tries to fight back here, playing pawn e4 now. We enter a King's Indian attack structure, but with the pieces reversed, so it's not a King's Indian defence, King's Indian attack. You just don't get this kind of insight on other channels. And now pawn a4. Push 'em, baby. The rook pawns feel like an absolute boss. a6 looks for some expansion later. This knight hops back, preparing to push. Castles and pawn f4. Now Ding is a modest guy, doesn't like to roar, but thankfully Niemann took on the job for him, really let out his lungs here at the push of that one. He attacks the queen. This is no time to Botez Gambit, and now a mistake. Now what you should do apparently is b5, knight b4, but it does involve a piece sacrifice, because white can go f5, shutting down the bishop's escape, and then you can run into things like h3, g4. You're losing a piece, but apparently you get this pawn avalanche and counterplay. But Niemann drops back, doesn't want to see that, but he runs straight into a powerful connect 4. Ding only goes and wins himself a pumpkin carving lesson with Wesley So in honour of Halloween. Not that this was played on Halloween, it was a few days before. We now see the bishop drop back, and now this is really astonishing to me. Like, how many games of chess has Ding played in his life? Well over 10,000, right? The guy was number 2 for quite a while. Incredible player. The pattern is this. Everyone knows that. Everyone sees that when you've played tons of chess. You hop the knight, you hit the bishop, it retreats, and then you go a5. Why is this the play right now? Well, you stop b5, then you can take on croissant. Knight's got a beautiful outpost. You open up these pieces to develop, which then allows the rook to develop. Sometimes, you do have to watch the pawn. It's just the way you go. Then you pawn storm. But Ding doesn't do it. He plays Queen e2. I mean, it's a horrible move. Yes, you prepare g4, okay, but you allow b5. And now that stops knight c4, which means your bishop hasn't got its eyes opened, which means the other pieces are locked. So we see this in response. Now knight b4 goes for the sensitive point, forces knight a3, known as the sodium attack, I believe, if you play it on move 1. Now Niemann apparently should play g6 here. Looks very weakening, but it supports knight h5 upon g5. Okay, he misses it. He plays this, and this is a mistake, because it allows this, knight hopping back, and now there's a tactical shot. And it's connected with the fact that you've taken the knight's retreat square. What should Ding do? Pawn c3, and it's a knockout. He didn't play this, but it is just a knockout at this level of chess. The knight is trapped. It has no jumps. The best line, according to the powerful Sir Stock Squiddington, is to win 2 pawns for the piece, but this should be winning for white, even though you get some pawn counterplay. Not played. c3 missed. Ding defends the pawn here, but now c4 comes on the board, and it's truly explosive because we get takes. This one takes here, and now when pawn c3 comes, although the knight still has no retreats or decent jumps, you've got time to push on through the center. queen retreating, you jump in, yes you lose a pawn, but all the time taken to win that pawn now, and the doubled nature of these mean that Niemann can spawn the seahorse, jumping into this very tender square, and the trouble is this knight is glued to the protection of that square now, and if the knight doesn't move, the bishop can't develop, we're back to the same old problems from earlier. This is where that knight belonged, but this was now played. Now we got queen b6, king stepping off the sensitive diagonal, rook fd8, and the big problem here for Ding is he's running out of waiting moves. Niemann's got tons of ways to just improve the position, won't click down lots of lines, so Ding does play the knight back, try and get some play going on the king side, attack, 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 right, but the trouble is, black now hops, and it's the black initiative which is coming way faster. Rook b1 best. But Ding tries this, saying you take me, I take you. This is exactly what Hans Niemann does. It's a miscalculation on Ding's part, because if you take here, well, black can take here. Yes, you win the rook on d8. Black rook recaptures, and then this is an important line to explore. What if you try and trap this knight? I mean, actually, it's got a square here and can bounce like this. Can also go to e1, hit the bishop. Then you open the eyes, so there's no knight trap and black stands better. Bishop pair, pawns ahead. So we didn't see this line. We saw rook takes on a1, bishop c5, and again, the weirdest thing about this game is not losing, but just some of the decision making. Like everyone can see in an instant, you take that when you played enough chess, right? Or queen e2 is apparently the second choice, but most people are just blitzing, taking. You know, you can't leave that bishop to live on this powerful square. This is the second top move. Defend the e3 square. Game goes on. Black is better. But Ding plays bishop c1. I mean, the guy's fall from the top here, the chess he's playing is just huge. It's almost like he's setting up for the next game. He's resigned to losing. How does Niemann get the job done? Well, he doubles on the file here. Now knight g3. It's just going from bad to worse. There's no connection on the back rank due to this horrible move. Some seriously stinky cheese. And now can you find the knockout blow in this position? Ends the game on the spot, basically. The force is strong with Hans Niemann as he crashes through with r2d2, checking that king. Obviously, if queen takes, you take and you win a queen, and then you invade and check. And so after bishop takes, what's the point? Well, it's the same thing I just mentioned. This is an interception tactic. Queen's no longer connected with that square. King running, check. King running, bishop f2, and we saw resigns. There's no way to protect that knight, no sensible way. This is the top move, but of course you just take. What if instead you try and move the knight, you know, somewhere? Then you get mated. So we saw resigns here. It was game over, mate to follow, or huge material loss. That was a 34 mover. This is a 23 mover. And it starts with a king pawn defense, one of the most solid in all of chess. I mean, to give you a sense of how good and how solid Ding Liren has been down the years, he went on a 100 game unbeaten streak in around 2017, 18, 19, somewhere around that period. It broke a record at the time, then Magnus surpassed it. I mean, insanity unbeaten streak. So solid, so difficult to break down in these structures. And now look at it. Losing in 23 moves to Niemann's Italian stallion. What's so interesting about this game is how Niemann handles the opening here. This is so often the pride and joy of the Roy Lopez or the Italian positions. So don't give it up, right? Now, why not try and win the bishop here? Well, now there's this b4 stuff. Gets super weird. Can't say I'd have found this line without the trusty engine, right? Apparently white's standing better, so no immediate knight a5, bishop drops off, and now the main moves for white are dropping back with the bishop to come to here after knight a5, or a4, preparing bishop a2, save the bishop, right? But Hans plays knight g3, saying, please sir, eat up that bishop.
Mushrooms.
Ding says, I will. Thank you very much. Looks tasty. I'm hungry. It's about to run away. He chops it off the board. Pawn recaptures, opening the rook, and that is pertinent because rook e8 is played. Pawn h3. And now one of the most natural moves in the world. Pawn d5 is a mistake. Apparently you should prepare it with c6 and some other stuff, right? Maybe do a bit of development first. But it looks so understandable to do this. Often if you can break quickly in these structures, you're pretty happy. And there's no knight coming to c3. So the queen sits well there. Niemann takes. Queen recaptures. It's a black widow spider in the centre of the board. We see some development here. And now pawn c5 is natural. Because if you've got the bishop pair, you often want to keep the bishop pair, right? So that's why we saw c5. Black's got the centre here. Black's got the centralised queen, a backwards pawn to attack. The bishop pair as mentioned. How can this be so good for white? Well, it's for one move and one move only that keeps this sizable advantage. It's rook a4. Niemann launching that rover. That's rook up and over. Absolutely incredible insight. And you've got to say, this must be home preparation to lift this and swing this across the board. Remarkable chess. I mean, you feel at this point that Ding is not really playing against Hans Niemann, but against Hans Niemann's stockfish. And I'll head you off there, right? Because I know you're typing the comments already. I'm not saying he's playing with it on his person at the time, jammed in his rear end or something. No. By the way, that whole thing came from a throwaway comment from Eric Hansen. You know, the most ludicrous thing, but it caught fire and took off and everything. What I'm saying is Niemann's prepared this with an engine. I don't think he's found it over the board, brought this prep to this game, and Ding capitulates. You know, his best move here is e4, thrusting for counterplay, but he plays rook ad8, and it sets up a back-to-back double brilliancy. And just before I show you that one, by the way, I've been banging on about Lotus Chess. If you want to learn openings, you know, this is the importance of openings. You can either get spanked in them, or you can do the spanking, the domination. Use Lotus Chess if you want to dominate. Makes it really fun to learn new openings. I just hit my 10-day streak, learning the Nimzo Larsen myself right now. A lot of fun with that, trying to pretend I'm Hikaru. Do give it a go. Link in the description. They just passed 100,000 downloads. Incredible. So good. What's the move to play here to blast open the king? It's bishop takes on h6. Beautiful sacrifice. And a quick mention of Danya here, because when I see this move, really reminds me of the kind of sacrificial move that Daniel Naroditsky would play. Most grandmasters would play this, but he loved to chuck those pieces around, sack, attack the king, kill the opponent, and also in a nice touch, chess.com announced in the last day or so that the Speed Chess Championship Winners' Trophy will now be called the Naroditsky Cup in honour of Danya, who did so much SCC commentary down the years. So all the past winners will be on the trophy and the future winners as well. Very nice honour to his memory. Now, why can't you take this bishop? If you do so, it's the simple queen d2. And this attack is irrepressible. You know, cut the board in half. This one's in Siberia. This one wishes it could transport itself back to here. But this isn't Star Trek. So we come back. This wasn't played. Takes. Bishop c6 was. Again, Ding just missing that he should thrust in the centre. And now Niemann really goes hard. Hits the G-spot. And it forces the king to recapture, or you're just going to get killed. Again, there's a follow-up of queen d2, but first knife f5. Garry Kasparov said it's worth a pawn to get a knight there, but this is worth even more. It's cutting the flight square, the queen's invading. I mean, this isn't just a brutal attack. This is a mating attack. Ding's actually just left on mate in 4. Can you find it? Well done if you saw rook h8 check, knight blocking, now queen g5, king running away, check, king going, and this is the mate. But why mate in 4 when you can win a queen? We saw this, king running, And now the finishing shot. Knight takes on e5. There's no mate, by the way. Don't worry. Queen covers the square here. And we saw resigns because after rook takes, queen takes. This is the sting at the end of the tail. Discovered check. You get fossilized here. And of course, you're going to go on to win more material. Checkmate the king. It really is game over. 2 crushing games from Niemann, and this was the final score. He took it home 18-6. Poor Ding Liren. I mean, he really has fallen so far from where he was. Real shame to see. He had some masterpiece chess games in the past. Hope you enjoyed this one, and do have a look at the video on screen in case you miss Hans Niemann versus Fabiano Caruana US Championship. What a mind-blowing domination that game was. Thanks a lot for watching, and see you soon. Cheers.